Hey guys. I'm Marcelo Levy, with the artistic name Tesla de Murbox, and I've been publishing books since 2010. I've been practicing magic for almost 20 years before, but I could only find an opportunity to publish books when I found an alternative outside the literary cartel in Brazil. I don't know in the United States and abroad, but the common profile until 2005 here in Brazil was the vast majority of simplistic works, very limited, and of new messiahs creating new dogmas of an ineffective reality, when financed by traditional journalism and publicity woke, sealers and the like. I know that I am very impetuous when taking risks with new methods, but at the same time I keep values and mainly the knowledge of our ancestors, in a very delicate dichotomy for any editor to understand. So let's summarize myself in a chaotic mage. Well then. From the beginning, I had already published a book on what in Brazil we call self-help in English, but the extreme ridicule that foreign people gave to Brazilians, especially in the occult subject, had a reason for being. Outside of one or another prominent name in their respective areas, in general, until the time I published the book in English by KDP, the works of Brazilians barely left the commonplace. It would be like basic teaching material for those who were already attending the Faculty of Magic. I had to suffer this in the flesh, but the idea that the occult audience is not as borderline as the media paints us is more real than any cinematic fantasy design us. However, we are like any human being, and this is what makes us special, beyond any utopian artistic allegory. That's what I explore in these videos, all based on my works, whether already published or about to be published. For those who don't know my style, practicing chaos magic where everything is allowed doesn't force me to walk around with my underpants over my pants claiming I'm a hero, but like any human being I need to want something, know what I'm doing, dare into something for my success to reap my results. In fact, what will distinguish me is being focused exclusively on success, rather than living in endless discussions of who was born before, the egg or the chicken. I eat both, here's my invitation. But walking on eggshells, as exposed in my works, I use the jargon of other authors in chaos magic that the gods of today are the demons of tomorrow, so that we can work with dormant or condemned energies not because they are of the opposition, but because they offer a new approach to human existence that bring pragmatic answers that submission to the unexplained dogmas of the murderers of Jesus Christ Catholics are no longer even able to explain. Hebrews and Muslims get along well with magic. So even though they are not demonic, not yet condemned by Catholics, works by various authors will serve you to draw your own conclusions about. But back to those who watch this video, thanking the support of those among you who have already offered me to acquire works both from the Grimorio Goetia collection, as well as from the Grimarium Verum Carpe Nigrum collection. Since the end of October last year there have been problems in the Brazil and outside Brazil that changed everything, including here on YouTube videos. Previously, the publisher I worked for in Brazil, Book2, had excellent printing quality, good service, and complaints were minimal, but all resolved. I mean, the delay in printing and delivery was always resolved in the quality of the product that people received. However, in addition to the Brazilian government changing policy, as if it were from our purest and most wonderful tubna to unpalatable artificial juice and powdered crystal sugar, in November 2022 the publisher stopped activities and they only returned in January of this year. The problem is that the publisher was bought by Bookwire and, a few months later, I have a lot of difficulties to close a contract with them. So, as KDP still makes it possible to print with great quality and with the advantage of delivering worldwide, added to their entire structure of associating the printed work with the ebook, already having all the free dissemination structure included, this forces me to work exclusively with KDP in calculating costs and benefits. But let's go. This video today is more for to introduce myself in your language, in titles that at least are already in English, or also in Spanish, which if not, soon I will translate. So, following my works published in foreign languages, I will make a parallel of my experiences, but in a very objective and summarized way. 1. My history. 2. Sorcery basis. Theme 1. What is sorcery and sincerity. 3. Prosperity pacts with demons. 4. Sex pacts with demons. 5. IMP of love. 6. IMP protection. 7. Word search Goetia 8, Abramelin path working magic 9, service to the foreign public hereon. Ora da magia ducos. Before proceeding, I must apologize to you for not narrating the video in English and Spanish, but I explain that in addition to the content becoming difficult to understand, it would compromise the entire content of the video if I spoke this material. But let's go to the ebook. Now that I can talk to you, who maybe didn't know me before, it's interesting to explain that this channel deals with magic in an eclectic way, without a closed position and dogmas that even today confuse people and especially its followers. The distinction to what a religion is, of what is practiced in magic. Given this fact, an eclectic model of magic that can encompass all other practices, and even any religion, is chaos magic. Given this eclectic flexibility in chaos mag, this was the main reason for this name to serve as the title of the program. I am human too, and sometimes I can make mistakes too. But as long as you follow the eclectic philosophy of chaos magic that nothing is true, everything is permitted, it will be an excellent place for you to disagree with what I will speak mainly for your results. Remember, against the facts of your results there are no arguments, so when you base yourself on your actual and not speculative success, it will be a great time for you to disagree with me. Disagreeing is neither bad nor good, but it is a difference of opinion that must necessarily be clarified as it may be from other people, and perhaps in the future even my future doubts, that need to be clarified. So, always in this program, feel free to speak, as long as you do so with the same respect that was given to you and we take the opportunity to improve both my techniques and yours. But let's go to my presentation. 1. My history. Tesla Mer Box, also known as Frater Sothanaram, has been practicing magic since 1992. He has trodden different paths. During the passages, many sources described in this book are approached free of exclusive lines, but with adaptation of all from Kabbalah, Hermeticism, paganism, Umbanda, Afro-Brazilian, Gypsy, alchemical, Oriental, and Tantric, among others. Far from the duality between good and evil, the relevance of life presents this inestimable value that industrialization increasingly takes away from our human identity, leaving it under the guise of emblems, of marks. In these grimoires Tesla offers a minimal basis for personal development without restricting ourselves to these contents, the starting point for us to follow his other works as well as the works of other authors and beliefs. Our personal freedom also acts with great force to open these practices within any creed, any faith, so that then, with this development, we can succeed in our personal goals. The use of fears, self-reflection and other emotional responses makes these works very useful also when directed at methods not presented in these books either. It also explores the path in the human mind so well explored by the author H.P. Lovecraft to tread in fear and self-reflection, in the attitudes of facsimile monsters to criminals, to develop the mythology of Cthulhu. The use of fears, self-reflection, and other emotional responses makes them very useful when targeted in methods also presented in this book. 2. Sorcery Basis, Theme 1, What is Sorcery and Sincerity? This book I published only in print in 2009, the first of my authorship while I was really under the spell of chaos magic and trying to embrace the world with both my arms, duly numbed by the possibility of publishing my books. It was really the project of a school, but I learned that schools were a factory of dogma to sentence the possibilities for what is accepted or not, so I didn't take this path forward. I was still infected by the idea of orders, priesthood and the pyramid of power, however much I tried to avoid them. Since 1992 before that I trod the old journey in one or another group of the traditional pyramids of Umbanda, Paisi Maista Santo, Rosicrucianamorque, Templars of the East Zone, Ordo Templi Orientis and Id, but the work is the tomb of those earlier schools where it is focused exclusively on making the practice of the simplest magic, sorcery, as pragmatic as possible. This is because it is within the reach of people already vaccinated not to try anything out of the manual, as well as those who have already seen something outside the window, to in all cases explore our freedom to live, instead of spinning around ourselves in circles of questions and answers of the whys of life. Sorcery uses the affirmation of success and simply dismisses or saves for a different event what does or does not work. That simple. 3. Prosperity Pacts with Demons. Since I realized that the possibility of publishing books is a wonderful thing, at the same time I learned that people who read try to follow a literary line to assimilate people who are authors with a similar line of philosophies. Really, from my literary experience, I always found it difficult for an author to write two sensational works in the same line, but at the same time it taught me that if I'm going to write, I have to always improve. Ever. So I tried to understand what made people look for demons to do magic as much as angels. I tried to look in archaeology what gods, and mythologies were, until I found the answers only through magic, and never through religions. So to understand it, I started to practice and research left-hand magic a lot and its reason for being, outside of the monstrosities that some religions say to attack it. And I realized that the left hand is nothing more than a mask of opposition only to those who intend to use it to masquerade as against. I say against figuratively, because without this evil implanted in the minds of its faithful people, religions would have no reason to exist. Depending on who attacks the left hand the most, sooner or later shows how much he is involved with what he condemns. Since then, I have tried to look at what they paint from the front, and I have created the Grimoire Goetia collections, and recently the Grimorium Verum Carpe Nitrum, as there is already a lot of material about Goetia already published. After Goetia I delved into the line of Lucifer to better understand why what at the beginning of Catholicism was declared holy, and after 400 years of the death of Jesus Christ, it started to be condemned. Then I arrived at the huge Grimorium Verum Carpe Nitrum collection, still only in Portuguese. As I didn't have time to translate the huge original work from Portuguese into English, I realized that there was so much mostly indicative material that people could use the hundreds of demon names to use without necessarily purchasing my collections, but from their own experience. This is how I wrote about the prosperity pacts, at least with the activities I present in the collection. Indeed, people all over the world have come to see activities with demons not as evil in itself, but as the fulfillment of our personal will. Thus, if we practice evil, it will be the evil that we have within ourselves. Good in the same way. We are the people responsible for our success or failure. I put the whole list at the end of the third volume of the collection Grimorium Verum Carpe Nitrum of the workbooks Hierarchia, and it seems that people tried to do it with other people. This work contains important information that is complementary and flexible to the Grimorium Verum collection, Carpe Nitrum according to the individual needs of each practitioner, including data for people interested in contracting this service from third parties. Here, knowledge is an advantage that can benefit you both when practicing pacts and interacting with other people on this subject. As our ancestors already said, the stupid person doesn't know and makes mistakes, prevents himself from learning and is angry with those who know. The intelligent person makes mistakes, but he learns from his own mistake, and the wise person learns from the mistakes of others. This work, using the knowledge of many practicing people who gave us their interpretations or left us books to understand something left by such authors, we can improve our activities. 4. Sex pacts with demons. Just as advertising, marketing and business administration direct popular attention to the old consumerism of drugs, religion and sex, in magic for those who use it commercially, the main aim is health, prosperity and sex. As I spoke in the previous part about prosperity and magic is implicitly the means by which pragmatic people deposit their beliefs to reap results, now I need to talk about the topic of sex. Theoretically, fantasies range from the simplest whore doll in any sex, to the most distinguished succubus and incubus, within the possibilities of the most imaginative minds. But here we will talk about results and not the means by which results can be obtained. In other words, in the work on sexual pacts with demons, names will be given for different purposes in the sex segment. The need for this work is as great as, or more than, the theme of prosperity, given the great distinction by which sex is practiced by different people. And look, this work only deals with normal sex, regardless of the genders of the practitioners. Here it is publicly declared that for masochism and sadho this will be the subject of another work. In a structure similar to the work for prosperity, where whoever acquires the work searches for the names most related to the desired purpose in order to obtain a greater chance of success. There is also no declaration of methods in the work on sexual magic. As I am able to offer you the works from the collections with the suggested rights, at least in Portuguese, I will be able to bring a translation of these into English and Spanish. But for now, KDP Publishers' own system makes it very difficult to publish works on Goetia, specifically. Be patient. 5. IMP of Love. This work was the first one that I directed specifically to love, mainly because of the variability that each person seeks in it and with it. Distinct from sex, when it is expressed in the absolute majority of times by the pleasure it brings us, even in pain to people who enjoy pain, whether practitioners or victims. Due to its complexity, love is what we expect from ourselves and what we offer or not to the person we love. The way this is practiced is so complex that it would take a lifetime to explain just one of each individual case. There is no time. However, the magic of love, as Jesus Christ himself tried to apply to his people, is an extremely powerful resource of magic, which can make human beings live as heroes, regardless of what other people see. But when one party is like that to the other, whatever sex it is, regardless of what dogmas the person has consistent with the status quo or the religion of their group, however, there is a projection of this love that can metamorphose according to our will, related to love, obviously, which are the servants. Faced with servers being somewhat fleeting in their general scope, here it was to transform this server into a very intimate being inconsistent with the personal tastes of each person who practices magic called IMP. So, before I commit suicide arguing about what would be the correct love, what seemed more congruent and tangible for all people, it would be to let each person make their own servant, very intimate and outlined according to their ambitions, conditions and possibilities for your personal success. Thus, satisfying the ultimate goal of chaos magic, each practicing person can craft his own IMP for personal success. There are several rituals suggested for its use that encompass many possibilities, this without ignoring the other purposes that you can develop for your personal IMP to act, perhaps taking advantage of each of the given structures and adapting them to your personal needs. You decide. 6. IMP Protection. Following the similar introduction to the work on love, this server is a resource that I offer not only to the persecuted people I work for, but to those who still don't know me and need help 24 hours a day. Obviously, despite my size, I am not a bodyguard, so the greatest asset I try to offer to people who seek my assistance is to offer a protection service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or 24/7. Despite having a different purpose than the IMP of love, it is still an IMP, so some concepts can be properly used to define what an IMP is. I know that those who have already acquired the work for love will understand the loss of space due to repeated content, but those who acquire one do not necessarily acquire the other, so, repetition is necessary for the perfect use of both. I haven't published the ebook yet so that people, mainly in Brazil, can borrow it beforehand, but believe me that, when you are willing to do the activities presented there, having the book will become mandatory due to the effectiveness of IMP protection. Unfortunately KDP does not show, or shows very little of the content of the printed book, and I need to find a way to show it, but until that happens, in this video I will present to you the list of activities gathered for your use with IMP protection. 1. What are IMPs? Page 13. Etymology, History, Goblins, Lincoln's Imp, Other descriptions, Objects, Culture, Types of Magic. 2. Suffer attacks, page 17. I need magic protection. Why counter magic? Defense against dark arts, identifying attacks, when you need protection, attack symptoms, be aware, intuition, ethic, another approach. Exceptions, defense against what? How much protection do I need? How to use it for protection, legacy. 3, Demon by Doc and Gargoyles, page 33. Underworld power, IMP's name, adapt IMPs to other demons, gargoyles. 4, Creation IMP protection, page 39. Protection crystals, herbs for protection, chakras, how to prepare and use herbs, protection oil, dragonbane protection oil, time, creation imp protection ritual, Weekly food. 5. Personal protection, page 89. 5.01. Generic protection. 5.02. Protection from spirits or harmful energies. 5.03. Against curses, evil eye and evil eye. 5.04. All-purpose protection and curse breaking. 5.05. Protection from spells cast upon you. 5.06. Protection to break spell cast on you. 5.07. Enemy protection. 5.08. Psychic protection by the belt of witches. 5.09. Protection from vampirism. 5.10. Protection against dream invaders. 5.11. Protection of someone's domain over you. 5.12. Protection to avoid disasters planned by others. 5.13. Protecting your body, armor. 5.14. Protection from physical attacks. 5.15. Money, resource and time drain protection. 5.16. Protection from unfair accusations, lies and gossip. 5.17. Protection of critical persons. 5.18. Entry protection. 5.19. Protection of disturbing persons. 5.20. Protection by amulet of body, mind and soul. Preparations for all rituals for traveling or moving abroad. 6.01. Removing repeated obstacles to traveling or moving. 6.02. Travel amulet bag. 6.03. Remote reversal. 6.04. Mobile threat protection. 6.05. To travel protection. 6.06. Protection from psychic attacks. 6.07. Psychic protection, mobile. 6.08. Illness protection during travel. 6.09. Securing vehicle when traveling on vacation. 6.10. Protection for security against accidents and attacks. 6.11. Spell amulet of protection for airplanes and airports. 6.12. Avoid travel delays or interruptions. 6.13. Black Madonna protection incense over smelly passengers. 6.14. Protect luggage. 6.15. Protection of travel companions who complain a lot. 6.16. Hotel and motel protection. 6.17. Protection against terrorism. 6.18. Travel amulet bag. 6.19. Protection against theft while traveling. 6.20. Moving away fearing losing contact with origins afterward. Page 232. Bibliography, page 233. 7. Word search Goetia. In the pages of this small word search book there are easy games to be carried out, with some objectives related to the common practice of activities with each name. In addition to this very useful information that you can carry in your pocket, such as what the work is, a word search booklet, you can use to analyze which names meet your goals as life forces you to find solutions to the respective subjects. These guidelines are offered for your enjoyment in the best possible way, at the time you determine that the activities you choose for such purposes are useful, at the time you determine opportune. The author and the publisher are not responsible for misuse, as any and all activities beyond these word searches are entirely your responsibility. But feel free to contact the author to communicate both your successes and your failures, with the best regards so that you at least enjoy the game while increasing your knowledge. The highlighted terms are mostly common objectives and the operations for your transformation with each of the names. Well, this text above is for the lay public, because for people who practice magic it is a game of goals and results. Literally. What do I mean by that about a mere word search? The obvious, folks. It is for those who use Goetia as a means of magical realization and are using it, or at least planning activities for later, and want to relate the best energy with which they will work. This in a totally unobtrusive way that only people who practice magic will understand. Better than that is wanting to discover people who practice magic in the same environment as you and are unaware of. When you start flipping through the crossword and someone wants to butt in. Aha! Found. 8. Abramelin path working magic. The Holy Guardian Angel has always been the symbol of greatest protection for every human being, and the most symbolic work on this subject was the so-called sacred magic of Abramelin, the magician, which after the mechanization of the printing press in the Western world the most outstanding translation was that of S. L. MacGregor Mathers. Although this translation was the most influential publication of the material, scholars strongly condemned it not because of the English translation, but because of the original German to French translation on which it was based. Although the Worms version filled in the missing gaps directly from the German original, it also reaped its errors, regardless of who was right or wrong. These and other practical analyses of the same names, but not following the limited structure of the statements in Abramelin's book. All the names collected have been presented here so that you can associate an assimilation of names and use them, based on the data presented here in their favor. More important will be his contribution to the development of the use of these same names with the information that he receives in practice, but absent here, however, the ceremonial practices that generated the practical content itself were the result of many sacrifices over a long period of time, which were appropriate for the time of his writing, in a record of practices well before his writing in AD 1400. But not anymore. Currently, the recognition of practices through pathworking has opened up a range of options for personal development without requiring great sacrifices, mainly time. Even so, the practical content, far from the extensive repetition of behaviors that are extremely loaded with dogmas that produce results, was adapted so that the core of the activities could be used in an innovative way through pathworking, but without corrupting the technical structure. In addition to the originals and their respective translations taken as a basis, the new authors declare that details are missing from the originals that their own experience has taught them, which are very useful information and should not be forgotten. As an example, the work of Franz Bardon Practice of Magical Evocation, which brings together very comprehensive views of the author's practice on operations with certain previously unnoticed or ignored demons. The path-working activities themselves, in many cases, were adapted from material made available by Theodore Rouse, which is extremely valid for practice. Works such as Denera or Zebut's Rites of Astaroth were also added to the Black Pullet, Science of Magical Talisman material to primarily form content involving talismans and other symbols of power associated with Ashtaroth's servants. Thus, this work initially talks about the path working and the structure by which it was used here, then the next chapter deals initially with the 4 superior demons, then the 8 intermediary dukes of Lucifer, so in this part you can see the vast majority of servers for the most varied purposes. Nor can we forget about the dukes who act in pairs or in the last case of the 4 united Dorians, Paimon, Eraton, and Amaimon. This particular job brings together the list of final activities to facilitate the individualized search according to the purpose, in the chapter topics to offer, so that when you get used to the path-working activities you can explore even more options, according to your needs. 9. Service to the foreign public. Finally, because most people don't know me as a person, as well as my material, it is necessary to clarify how I act, to better understand the works I offer. My works are as eclectic as I am as a chaos magic practitioner. Faced with our maximum rule being pragmatism, we practitioners of this line are also our biggest censors. When we see that something doesn't work immediately, we are forced to change to something that works. However, within the options that work, there are no limits. As you can see in my description on my website or in other places that share my history as an author, since 1992 I have been working with magic, initially with Umbanda and Quimbanda, then traditional schools focused on ceremonial practices, most of them with activities received by mail, and then I entered some establishments dedicated to the development of its members, such as Amorg Rosicrucians, then Templars of the East Zone, then Ordo Templi Orients, which is actually the Caliphate, then Ayat, which started me on this path in chaos magic, and I solitarily embraced my own path along this line. Well, when we are trained to get into groups, as if we were puppies obeying their owners, we waste a great deal of time evaluating the activities that other masters do, strictly following the manuals, until the moment we look at the real magic, that only practice teaches us and success becomes our work. Until we reach this conclusion, especially people tied to what their superiors told them to do, we fatally give up. Like it or not, these schools of common Nasir have shaped much of what our society is today, from the time when the knowledge of those who possessed it was more of a threat to the laity than a modern possibility through technology. Luckily in human history the modus operandi changed too. After millions of deaths from 1300 to 1500, instead of killing anyone who thought differently in the name of God, the records from Gutenberg onwards forced religious people before killing anyone who believed in something different. They started to just separate the scientific things from the non-scientific ones, so the lives of many innovative people were spared. Not that I have anything for or against, but I operate with many lines of belief of the person who comes to me for consultations, so that the person can speak the same language as me. So all beliefs are also my resource for my activities. Nowadays we are called esoteric, out-of-the-box thinkers, beauty freaks or any other definition because we consider facts more than dogma, and for this reason we are often excluded even from academic conversations where students do nothing more than repeat the command of their masters. Innovative people, like those mechanics who built water-powered vehicles, were silenced before they revolutionized obsolete fuel-powered machine technology. But whenever people need solutions that use something beyond what things are going to happen, they look to us to check the feasibility of changes. I too, within the divination method of magic mirrors and tarot, among others, predict how far I can act to change the course of events. If it is not only opportune, it is possible. Faced with the positive position of the divinatory reading, we make arrangements for satisfactory conditions for both parties for reality to change as our action thus brings the desired result. That's it folks. This video was short. But finally, anyone who can help me abroad by acquiring these ritual booklets, they are pocket-sized notepads with blank or aligned pages related to Goetia to keep writings exclusively on magic, while at the same time a gateway to path working in the very cover, so they already offer resources for your activities in this pattern. Just look for Notebook and Teslidimer box, these pocket books each on the cover with the sigil of one of the 72 sigils of the demons of Goetia. So I thank you for your presence and I wish you a great week. Hugs.